Na siung kali na lamin nanjor de jundu na gres jundu nandi tata te tata se mandana tab demo de koron thoma je mombo rendiers.
So this is usually when we do the Ngondro practices, then you need to go through the Guru Yoga practice, kind of short Guru Yoga chanting. So then all the root verses from the beginning till to the Guru Yoga practice, right now how we just went through, in this way, just kind of daily practice, you have to follow in this way. So in general, when we do this practice, then we have whole bunch of textbooks that all the prayers. So here it is difficult. You don't have enough time, or it takes lots of time. So that is why this is the short Guru Yoga practice and Guru Yoga chanting. So in general, whatever the practices we may do, it is mainly depend upon the Guru Yoga or the Guru devotion. So as oneself, if wants to be very sincere to do a actual practice, then these the verses are very short contents, so there is no difficult to memorize. And if one do as a daily practice, then one can just get it. So this is like today's our retreat for 1 month, Ngondro practice and so forth. This is being just since from the 16th, 17th century, the Palyul monastery founder Rinpoche Kunsang Sherab. From that onward, it has been just unbroken, and 1 month retreat has been continuously carried on till now. So as a rule, traditional rule in Tibet and in monasteries, that without just going through this kind of retreat practice, that they are not really allowed to stay in the monasteries. So in this way, just doing the practice, retreat, the Ngondro retreat 1 month, 1 year, 1 month, and then the Tsalung, the channels and breathing year, just practice for 1 month, and then the Dzogchen Tegel practice 1 month. And Tegel mostly practice about 40 days. So when they just went through the 1 month Ngondro retreat practice, after that then they started accumulating the Ngondro practice like 400 or 500,000 times individually or in group practices. So it is because that one has already received the teaching and instruction on the this 4 foundation practice. So according to that, one also know how to do that practice. So in that way, one just continuously accumulating like 400,000 times of that Ngondro practice. So after completing the window like just about 400,000 times, then after that the actual the Tsalung practice, the channels and vital energy practice, that instruction is given.
Tsalung gamanone jende nyane singa yore jende nyane mijengo yore telengi ba yomare teina dawati de ko ma kyo chog maris.
So the actual practice on the Tsalung, the channels and the vital energy and essential drop, that's also practice. That there are just those who want to carry through the practice continuously, and there are who don't want to practice. But as a traditional rule that 1 month retreat on that Tsalung practice that all the monks must have to do.
That's all the bad.
So after completing these retreats, then after that, depending upon individual wish, that mainly they started accumulating the 3 root deities mantra. So during that practice, then they mainly receive the Dzogchen texture, the cutting through instructions. So within the texture instruction, there are like shamatha meditation practice and vipassana meditation practices, and also many other divisions. So after finishing that, then they receive the then after that they receive the Dzogchen Tekel instructions. So that Dzogchen Tekel practice mostly about 40 days. Then from that onward, then individually one just carries through one's own practice, that about the direct perception of the absolute true nature and so forth. There are 4 experiences within the Dzogchen, and that has to be applied by oneself. Then part of that practice, there are other retreats which is called like a bright retreat and dark retreats, that depending upon individual interests. But these days it seems like that difficult that anyone can do those kind of retreats. Because if one just could not do the retreat in a proper way, that sort of retreat, then there may be just one's mind to go out of order and just become crazy, so forth. For example, like a dark retreat, it is completely dark, that there is no slight light, then one have to spend about 1 month. So those who really wants to do the actual practice and who are really devoted in that way, it is not problem that within 2-3 days then one can experience all the Tekel appearances, kind of lights. So it is very easy. But if oneself is not really devoted or not ready to do that practice, then it is really maybe like a prison.
par so si mandirim na si chasong di charong so nyang so len tum na de si charong so pengre samundus.
So anyhow, that is just you all are really devoted and interested to do these Dzogchen practices. So according to that, each and every steps of the practices, just thinking, just being given all the instructions, and if you could follow all the practices, that definitely would benefit you all.
Na xiong gi chu se ya de la ngarong so yi chi se ge de ki moris.
So in general, the Dharma teaching or the practice, it is just very important that one need to have that kind of confidence or the faith.
Chu di hyo ne de yen na men na ndur do men ru de sound no dong sa di tin do ya de kale ka horis.
So after receiving the instructions, all these spiritual instructions, and then when one have all these kind of hesitation or doubts, just thinking, whether this is a real practice or not, or can I, really have any kind of result or not. In that way, if one get hesitate, then one cannot really achieve, one cannot get accomplishment. These days, just in general, it is like almost it is something like examining the Dzogchen practices.
Lo tesam yendo mena song lo tesam dembati Dzogchen koron zata ni sur sebo lo song yong tu maria tashi se ji ko ka tau yo maris.
Someone who has doubt about the Dzogchen teachings or instructions, then even since because of the doubt itself, it become a obscuration that how it is possible that one could even examine the Dzogchen teachings.
Ngatu pele na hone sanje chongsen remba gin shane tigi tile khane nyam de je le koron chu no so no gi ti sa no tang ni nyam su lendi te ron so so mi pa ta tu ba to yo ba te tom to mo yer de na mortia de ya bo chao yer te so me ba shi nyam su lengre.
For example, in Tibet, that just all these practices that being given, transmitted from the master to disciple, and then there are whole bunch of the realized beings that going through the practice according to the instruction, although there are also few who may not have certain realizations, but the majority is that they could get accomplishment within these practices.
Rons losa tesi nyans len yaba tantiti kon passe tile ni pa che jure ma dole rons ni pa tan tu geres.
So after receiving these instructions and having that kind of determination within oneself, and then carrying through the practice, that because of the confidence, it is definite that one could have some kind of accomplishment or certain level of the power depending upon one's own practice.
Te karesena tomi ngomba chiku kondo zombo ne maramba ge je on de ron so so te de nyang so le chuba top so le te tongka che di ne te koron mi te na ba se ti ki le ma je se te on de te le ta se ti se ne ge ya ma koron ni ba de tong de ge.
So it is because all these Dzogchen teachings just being transmitted from the beginning, the primordial Buddha, till to the present root master, it is being just transmitted from master to disciple. And there are a whole bunch of the realized beings who just experience everything exactly according to the teaching. So there is no need to have any doubt, or there is nothing to examine, because it has been already approved by all the past masters, those who got that kind of experience. In general, that it doesn't mean that you cannot you not necessarily examine it, but the sky, we cannot just measure it with our hands. So something like a space, and then one wants to thinking, oh, I want to just have a measurement of this sky or space. So it is something very funny. So in that way, the Dzogchen practices and the teachings are very profound and unlimited, like the space itself. It is not something very simple. If anyone really want to examine all the Dzogchen teachings, then one must need to have that kind of quality exactly like a Buddha, someone who has enlightened mind. And then there is the only possibility that one can examine, otherwise there is no way. But it doesn't mean that anyone, whoever wants to examine, one can do it. But the meaning is something like that. So today, just according to the practice steps, or the going through that instruction, in the beginning it is the Ngondo, the four foundation practices. So in general, that just really applying into some Dharma practice, the main purpose of it is that to liberate oneself and all other beings from the suffering of the cyclic existence. So just to liberate from the suffering of the cyclic existence, the only most powerful path is the spiritual practice. Other than that, we cannot find any other path. So just only this lifetime, even we have good health and kind of happy and entertaining, that itself is not enough for us, because we have to go through the future many generations or many lifetimes. So we could not just really understand about the past and future lives. It is just because of our obscuration, just only because of the obscuration. If we don't have all this obscuration, and if we try to understand or realize what happened in our many past lifetime and what is going to happen in the future, then it is kind of inexpressible. So what we really need is that we need to do the actual Dharma practice, that we could have some kind of experience or some kind of realization. So although it is from the beginning, it is difficult to renunciate one's mind from this, from this world, but anyhow, one has to try to work on not having so much attachment within this present life, and then applying into practice, just training oneself. Then within this practice, that there is the four thoughts that which turns our mind from the samsara, is just to get rid of our mind getting attached to the worldly or this samsara. since we have that sort of attachment towards this present world or this samsara, then it is difficult that one could get liberate from the suffering of cyclic existence. So in general, the four thoughts, it is all the teachings are not something beautiful or sweet or nice. It is always explaining about the sufferings and problems. So other than that, if we just explain or give teachings on the Buddha field and then the Buddha's life, and all the masters' life history, then it is kind of very nice to listen, and it feels just kind of very happy. So that is kind of very nice to hear, and one might also cultivate some kind of devotion, but still, one cannot really get renunciate from the world. So the four thoughts, it is not really nice to listen it over and over, but it is something that which can just turn or train our mind from having that kind of attachment within this samsara. Contemplating on it, just realizing that if we go on spending our time in this way, then there is no essence. So that is why just one wants to do some practice to liberate from the suffering of cyclic existence. All the past Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, everyone went through that same kind of path, just understanding about the four thoughts, and then according to that they renunciate, and then they apply into practice. In that way they attain enlightenment. Other than that, there is no other way. So today, in the beginning of this teaching, there is a whole history about the masters and teaching itself, so that Holiness is going to just read and give the transmissions.
Shantake Shasu Tio, Shivane, Saruju Tivara, Tuji, Dison, Doso, Ungi Chazon, Mangi, Sanambe, Nota, Sembi Sendo, Barwando, Kumiki, Tuji Namakuna, Jurin, Ditason, Concha, Tawan Bema, Garvi, Cabe, Derin, Dori, and Doson, Ojin Soli, Beme, Dombola. Javi Nantoro Johnson Jito, Saman Beje and Tumbro, Bemman Juna Dali, Benzoro Son, Gonson Dawson Gara Kiris, Bemagara, Demonic Yuma, Sodron Tetan Jatas, Catrelama Nala Zorwa, and Kori Togar and Nimbunguru, and the Gonzo Gavi Nimbi and the baby Nanjara. Timevadre Kala Zoro and Kibu Basang Yosef Basum Tasum Kadinam Jinjib Sinlato Jigam Samish Tukumendro Dorjela Zoro and Kajakinet Lemezeba Bartimbema Karishan to be rendered Dodi Tobo Tara Gonzon Kira Sendo Dansika Bemanor Gama Chevradon Gama Lao Gama Danam Donga Tenzin Jerme Tenzin Tijinima Garamon Tenzin Bartin Divata Lamas continue to be in Jana Bayervi Asijivra Jela Zorwa Tarkin Chanti Rosin Jamio Needing me Gaji Jero, Sosun Doji to be Lovent, to then Jiji Dawa Zoro and Yanda Sonji Gan Nayo, Karin Sonji Gan Labingan, Tayla Mika Las, Sorajan Nelu Dova Shira Shinjilo, Kondo Soju Dongin Gitena, Degilama Jura Consodo, Tindra Tambi Jiji. Simran Deva Tadon Driki, Namaya Damba, Laye get on the on the jig, Tum Tadon Nika, not on Boagun. Dake Chitanda, Tanjik and the Society, the Chuji, Senator, the Tomar, then the wrong is similar to
So, since just going through the practice, a spiritual path, the Dharma, then it is important that in the beginning to generate bodhicitta. And at the same time to examine one's mind or the thought, that there is three kinds of thought which is known as the virtuous, non-virtuous and neutral. So if we do the Dharma practice with the influence by the afflicted mind, then that does not become a pure practice and one cannot get real help or benefit from it. So other than that, if one's mind is just kind of neutral thought which does not have any sort of virtuous or non-virtuous, that also is not beneficial.
Toma wrong Pama in Mangoshi Bashi. Pama in Mangoshi Bashi, Pama Tenant on the wrongy Latin, drink ambition about your Hakwashi. These agents on the Tata Consum Corandana do not in Nadia, but it's on the tongues.
So the virtuous thought, just starting with the virtuous thought, understanding about that all the sentient beings are one's lifetime or the other, they are one's parent. And knowing that they are one's parent, and then understanding the kindness of the parent and grateful, and feeling that kind of grateful to all the living beings because of just understanding as a parent or as mother. And through that one just try to cultivate that source of thought which is called virtues. In general, there is a very detailed explanation about the gratefulness of a mother, how important it is. So especially like this, our present body, just we got it from the great kindness of the mother. If there is no mother, then there is no way we could achieve this kind of body. So being just having our body, that which got from the mother, and that is why we could just do any kind of activity depending upon worldly activity or dharma activities. So right now we could not see it or we cannot experience, but otherwise that within the intermediate stage there are just thousands and millions of the consciousness in the intermediate stage that they could not achieve or they could not get a birth. So out of that wandering consciousness in the intermediate stage, from that having certain connection with one's parent and then oneself could just be born as a human being, that which one need to feel that kind of grateful. So depending upon that, whether we experience happiness or suffering, anyhow, that based on our body, physical body, that we are just could do all different kinds of activities. The number of the sentient beings is just inexpressible, that it is not something very little number. For example, like within 1 cup of water, and if we could just if we could count the sentient beings, how much is there within the water, it is like countless. We cannot really count each and every one. Also, like a huge lake, there is also sentient beings just equal to the each and every drop of that water. Out of 6 rims, that the 3 Lord rim, that hell beings and hungry ghost beings and animal, and out of that animal rim, the number of the animal rim is just very less. But still, it has been explained that the number of animals are equal to the dust of the earth. Out of that, we are fortunate being born as a human. So that is also just understanding about the mother's kindness. For example, within one's body, there are just still countless beings are there. As very gross imagination, it says that there are about 84,000 different insects within our body. So in that way, there is the number of sentient beings in this in this world. So similarly, like those insects, we also have just got same kind of birth just for countless time. So that is why this lifetime we achieved a human birth. So this is something very precious, and one have to understand about that. But still, it is just very short period. It is not just long time. So in future, our future lives, that we may not necessarily be born in other realms or other insects. So for that purpose, this is the opportunity that we can do the actual Dharma practice. So in general, of course, that there are just many religions in this world, and out of that, within the Buddhism also there are many divisions or categories, and out of that, the Dzogchen, the great perfection, is one of the most profound, through which one can achieve enlightenment in a very fast way. So out of that Dzogchen teaching, then this is the 4 foundation practice that the text named as the Buddha in the palm of hand.
Kala Kimbo Sagana Dombo Chudo, Medo, Talaji Yoshi Chason Tadiguras.
So, for example, if we want to really have a delicious food, then of course we have to just arrange all this, waters and fire, and then whatever necessary things we need to just get, we have to arrange for that. When all these, on all these conditions are everything assembled, and then we cook a very nice meal, and then one can have a very good food. So same like that, the Ngwendo, the four foundation practice is something like that, preparing to do a actual practice. Other than that, some food, meat, or any kind of vegetable, if we eat just raw, then one may have some problem within the stomach. So this is the text which explains that out of the great perfection, the Buddha in the palm of hand, that instruction is now starting. So in the beginning, it explains about the history of the teaching itself, because just to understand whether that teaching is authentic or not, it based on the history from where these teachings were just originated. So there are also certain teachings that which is just written in a very poetical, with the lots of poem and the poetical way of writing. It is just kind of really nice to listen and it is enjoying, but one cannot really get the actual meaning. So if we drink lots of water, we will not get intoxicated. And if we drink, this alcohols, then we get, intoxicated. So just the actual practice which has some real authentic meaning, and if we practice that, then that really one can get some benefit. Other than that, just listening for something which is just kind of nice in hearing, it does not get that much benefit. So then here it is there is three sections, that the history in general, and then the history of the Dzogchen, the great perfection, and then in particular this practice. So according to this teaching, that Shakyamuni Buddha is already at an enlightenment before, countless aeons before. So Shakyamuni Buddha just attaining enlightenment in the from the beginningless, and according to that he gave just countless Dharma teachings to benefit all sentient beings. So in the beginning, in the very, very beginning, when he attained enlightenment, first teachings he gave on Temchok, the great blissfulness tantric teaching.
Tata Thomas, the Tata Nasi Niteni come, Thomas teaching more on the figure.
So the beginning, very beginning, is not just beginning of this aeon or this world. It is just talking about just like this, from the countless before, the original of that beginning. So all these teachings, whatever it has been given, depending upon the accumulation of merit of the sentient beings, sometimes, the Dharma teachings just really flourish, and sometimes, it could not. So in some of the sutras in which it explained about the Shakyamuni Buddha, in the beginning he generated bodhicitta, and then he just apply into practice, accumulating merit and wisdom for 3 countless aeons, and after all he attained enlightenment. And that source of history is just for to show that kind of example to the future generations and the future practitioners how to follow into that way. So it is a provisional meaning. So the Buddhas, when attained enlightenment, then what kind of teachings he has given is based on the 3 kayas. So according to the Dharmakaya, then teachings were given on the great perfection. Then achieving as the Sambhogakaya, appearing as Berochana Buddha, then given the teachings known as the Kriya, which is Kriya Upayoga, the 3 outer tantras. So these teachings are given according to this aeon, that when the aeons are developing or increasing, at that period of time all these teachings were given. So these teachings that even that it got degenerate from the human realm, but still all these teachings are being preserved by the Dakinis and other lands. In that way, still that it can be flourished. So in other explanations that Shakyamuni Buddha is in form of Nirmanakaya, the Vajrapani, that there is in that way there is no even death. So according to in the Nirmanakaya form, the Shakyamuni Buddha gave all these 3 Tripitakas or the 3 baskets, the sutras and the Abhidhamma and so forth. So these 3 Pitakas or the 3 baskets, the teachings Sutra, Abhidhamma and Vinyas, and these teachings were given according to the aeon when it is degenerating, and within that level there is existing that Buddha also have death, and then the Dharma also sometimes just get exhausted, and then people's life expansions are the many different levels. All those sorts of phenomena are existing.
Tata kasu pavarke chuku dem chuku longo chuku custom jinone chuku dem ba de tiba mba guyon de ga doba chemo tekegires.
So right now the teaching is based on that the three kayas, the Dharmakaya, Sambhokaya, Nirmanakaya, and this is according to the Dharmakaya, the highest teaching out of the 9 yanas, the great Dzogchen, the great perfection.
This on the Gaston Tibar Maguji Chism, Nianti Ronjas on to Konzo Wombo Menla, Tia Oba Yoga Konzo Wombo, Ma an Adi Konzo Wombo Rama, or the Tibar Maguji Chude, Mama Tenesi, the custom Jinaga and so young years.
So all the teachings are just given in according to 9 yanas, that based on the different levels of the mind. So the lowest level of mind, the teachings were given about the Sudrayanas, the Shravakayana and Pratyekbuddhyana, and then Mahayana. Then for the middle level of the mind, the teachings were given based on the Kriya, Upa and Yoga, the 3 outer tantras. And then the highest level of the mind, according to that, the teachings were given like the Anu, Maha, Anu and Ati, the highest inner tantra teachings. So all these teachings are given of different 9 yanas based on the different levels of mind, but all this is like a kind of like a staircase. It is being, one have to go through step by step.
Nina kasu de la kono omba menla men dilande sodo kana tika dire mata te yenche misun sadi yenche mevanda di koso hegres.
But when according to the individual levels of the mind, the teachings were given in according to that, and like the Sutrayanas, that they think that is the highest level and that is the only path through which one can attain enlightenment. It thinks that there is no any other higher path than that. So the lesser vehicles or the lesser yanas, they would just explain that there are no higher yanas, and they also like sometimes criticize the higher yanas. Because they think that there the Dharma teaching, the sutras are the only the highest, and they think that there is no any other higher than that. So within the Dzogpa Chenpo, that the Dzogpa Chenpo, the great perfection, that they realize that all the lesser and the lower yanas are a step to the Dzogchen practice. So in that way, the Dzogchen accept all different kinds of yana, and also it is just accomplished. It is a kind of complete. The Dzogchen itself is a complete of all the different levels of the practices.
Tiba soso di nyanglen kare yo tiba rumba soso di tanti hakugi yoris te indi tanti di kunde sheya mebadi gen tanti di ngadu sheya jires.
It is because the great perfection, the Dzogchen, that knows, because it is accomplished with all the practices, whatever the individual yanas are, that they in the Dzogchen it is accomplished, so there is no any criticism, and understanding and taking as that the lower yanas are like a staircase or a step to the Dzogchen practice.
That nimba doba chemo rangi logi ma here.
Now the second section that it explains the history of the great perfection itself.
Custom
So within that also there is the explanation of the three kayas.
Custom delayon, relayon, custom chukulongo soto young cigarettes.
And within that three kaya, the Dharmakaya, Sambhokaya, Nirmanakaya, and each of the Dharmakaya, Sambhokaya, Nirmanakaya, that every of the kaya itself, within it, there is also like Dharmakaya and Dharmakaya Sambhokaya and Dharmakaya Nirmanakaya. In that way, this Sambhokaya also have Dharmakaya, Nirmanakaya and Sambhokaya, and Nirmanakaya also have Dharmakaya, Sambhokaya and Nirmanakaya. In that way, kind of three each different levels.
Custom chuku gaza custom gavara chuku
So according to the Dharmakaya is known as the primordial Buddha Samanbhadra.
Chuku langote dorji changsen gagres.
Then the Dharmakaya Sambhokaya is the Vajradharan.
Chuku truku de dorji semba gagres.
Then the Dharmakaya Nirmanakaya is known as Vajrasattva.
That chuku gaji custom teres.
So that is according to the Dharmakaya's three kaya.
That lonku gaji young custom gagres.
Then again, similarly, that Sambhokaya also have three kayas.
Lonku chuku de number nonde gagres.
Then the Sambhokaya's Dharmakaya is the Barochana, Sambhokaya Barochana.
Lonku de Jara ring not no the new mission last about gagres.
Then the Sambhokaya is the five Buddha family.
Lonku truku de Jara hiro hiti laso yong to gagres.
And Sambhokaya's Nirmanakaya is like 100 deities, the peaceful deities and wrathful deities and so forth. There are a whole bunch of other deities. So that is according to the Sambhokayas, the three kaya categorized in that way. Then according to the Nirmanakaya, also categorized in Dharmakaya, Sambhokaya and Nirmanakaya. So the Nirmanakaya's Dharmakaya is the Bairochana Buddha or Vajrasattva or the Amitabha Buddha. Then the Nirmanakaya Sambhokaya form is like Avalokiteshvara, Vajrapani and Manjushri. Then the Nirmanakaya form is like the 6 Buddhas and then the Guru Padma Sambhava and so forth.
Then that then on the Chimasun Gavatala, Java Gumbi Jiba, Dai Jiba, Kondon, Hingun Jiba, Dejimanum Jiba, Karo, Teddy Jiba, Karo, Teddy Jiba, Jiba to Dentin and Martin, Chiriti, Majum, Matilities.
So, according to these three kaya, then it is categorized into 9 kayas. So, these are the kayas, the deities or the Buddhas. So according to that, all the teachings which has been transmitted or given is like the mind transmission lineage, and then symbolic indicating transmission lineage, and then oral transmission lineage, and then the written transmission lineage, and then rebuilt out transmission lineage.